Hi, I'm Connor McLaughlin from Central High School.
And I'm Yvette Ponce from Lakeview High School.
Welcome to the first SAISD news of 2013.
That's right, the second semester is here and we're back to share more great things happening in SAISD.
We start off at the West Texas Training Center, where 3D animation students are working on a project called Fly Me to the Moon.
In this dual credit class, which is available to both Central and Lakeview High School students, instructor Chad Wilson teaches the process of 3D animation, from creation of basic models to the final rendered and animated product. For this project, which was a student's first handmade from scratch animation, students had to use their creativity and imagination to interpret the theme, Fly Me to the Moon, however they wanted. Chad Wilson explains more.
They had to, in their own creative way, show me a way to get to the moon. Now, we gave them some prompts, you know, if you want to use an Orwellian theme or an old, you know, or even a modern day sci-fi theme or something. But they had to, the students had to pick how they wanted to do that. And so they had to script, they had to storyboard, they had to plan, they came into teams, and then they began to model and create and do textures and do, you know, the coloring or the shading of these models, and of course animate them. And again, like I said, it's all from scratch. So it's really great to see the imagination, the creativity applied to this 3D world where we're using physics and geometric shapes and Cartesian graphing to incorporate all this into a finished product. It's so neat to see them just take off, and it's neat when they really don't feel like they're learning, but they are.
We now visit Bowie Elementary, where students are learning science concepts in a fun, hands-on way.
Several times a semester, 4th graders participate in a science lab where they perform hands-on science experiments to reinforce the concepts they're learning in class. We recently caught up with them as they were learning about different types of weathering. After learning about the 3 types of weathering, physical, chemical, and biological, students performed 2 different experiments using chalk. Students had to make observations before and after each experiment and use what they had learned to identify which type of weathering was represented by each experiment.
They will have, excuse me, a small container with rocks and sand in it. We'll put chalk in it, which will represent some kind of rock that'll be decomposed or broken apart. And they'll shake it. They'll have rocks and sand in it, shake it for a certain length of time, which will do something to the chalk. And then they'll take it out, re-examine it, and write their findings. You know, how it changed the chalk by doing that. And of course, that would represent the physical weathering of the material. And then we'll take another piece of chalk and examine it before, write that down, and then put it in a small amount of vinegar, which will begin to eat away at the chalk. And hopefully they'll see a chemical change there.
January 21st was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and students at Jacinto Elementary recently learned more about the holiday while brushing up on their reading and writing skills.
3rd graders rotated through various stations where they had to put into practice reading skills they have learned this year, such as using context clues, inference, background knowledge, and other thinking skills. Each of the activities had a Martin Luther King Jr. theme, so students also learned more about the famous activist in the process. Teacher Tammy Vargas explains more about the stations.
On the first day of the week, we receive a poem, and the poem that we did this week was about Martin Luther King and his dream. And we also read a book called Martin's Big Words, and we used that in the reading station and in our word workstation, where the students use context clues to discover the meaning of vocabulary words that they have from the book. They receive a picture with the word highlighted, and they use that to determine the meaning of the unknown word. And then in the reading station, we have pictures, and the students use the pictures to make inference statements based on what they see in the picture, and they just have to use background knowledge, which is inferencing, to make guesses about what they see in the picture. And then in poetry, they use the poem to answer their star STEM questions, like what is the big idea of the poem, and what do they visualize when they read the poem. In the writing station this week, what they did was we created a web quest for the kids, and they were answering questions about Martin Luther King's life and some big events in his life. And once they finish the web quest, they're going to create a timeline. And with the timeline, they're going to write a paragraph about Martin Luther King's life.
Last but certainly not least, we want to take a minute to recognize the SAISD School Board.
That's right. January was School Board Recognition Month in Texas, and it is our privilege to be a part of it.
Many of the great programs we talk about on this show are made possible by our school board members, who serve tirelessly to make our district the best it can be.
Thank you, SAISD school board members, for your dedication to students and employees of SAISD.
And that concludes this episode of SAISD News.
See you next time.
Bye.